Oh, no, I'm not worried. I just looked up and connected. I looked up.
All right. Good morning again. We're going to go ahead and get started. And thank you for everybody being on the call. We're going to start just with a quick roll call, make sure we got everybody. How about North Carolina? Who we got in North Carolina?
Barbara's here.
Shane is
Barbara.
here.
Hey, Shane. How about Gino Bell?
Gino's here.
Hey, Gino. All right. And how about Mississippi? We got Ed and Shalita in South Haven.
I'm here.
I'm here.
All right. Good morning, guys. Good morning, all. Don, you want to go through yours?
Sure. How about Colorado Springs? Ricardo, you on the call?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Good deal. Gabby, probably not. She's on vacation this week.
Surprise, surprise, I'm here.
Oh, hey, Gabby. Hope you're enjoying your vacation.
Yeah,
TK in Oklahoma.
I'm here, sir.
Okay. Emily?
I'm here.
Good morning. How about John Vincent in Nashville, Tennessee?
Present.
All right, John. And Annette over at the Hampton in Brentwood? Oh, it's doing so good till then. Annette, are you there? All right. And then Daryl might be a little bit late. Daryl, I assume you're not on. He's doing an MIT showcase tour this morning. We had an MIT meeting this morning with 5 or 6 prospective MITs for Chartwell, and they're doing a kind of a national tour today, and Daryl might be tied up with that at the moment. So everybody accounted for except for Annette. I'll send her a quick text, Paul.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to start with this quote that you have. I assume everybody can see my screen okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So this is just a quote I heard a couple years ago, and I think it's pretty good, pretty relevant to us and what we do in our business. So if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. If it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So I know in our jobs, that frog might be an associate who's underperforming that you need to talk to and you need to sit down with. Or it might be that guest that's really hard to deal with. Or it might be that report that you've been putting off. Or it might be that project that you've been needing to do as a team and you haven't gotten to it. So we all have frogs. And I think it's a great message of, hey, just knock it out, put it on the first part of your day, get rid of it, and move on. And it's kind of an I guess you would say, procrastination technique. But I think it's pretty good advice. Just wanted to share that.
So, Paul, do you have to eat the whole frog, or can you eat just the leg?
You have to eat the entire frog.
Well, that doesn't sound very pleasant.
So, anyway, I wanted to share that. And we'll move on to getting into some other content in our call. We want to talk a little bit about balanced scorecard for a minute. So, who can tell me what are the 3 components of the balanced scorecard? Just give me one area of the balanced scorecard. Anybody from the phone?
RevPAR.
Revenue, RevPAR, yes. It's 2 more.
Revenue to profit.
Revenue to profit or flex and flow. So we've got revenue, flex and flow. We've got RevPAR, market share. And what's the last one?
BSS.
BSS, otherwise known as guest voice now. I'm still learning to call it guest voice.
For what brand?
From Marriott.
Marriott, yep.
And guest insight for choice and SALT for Hilton's. So we have a focus on that this year, and we want to get better. We need to show a better scorecard to our owners in this year. And so Don's going to talk a little bit about expectations and where we're going with our balanced scorecard this year.
So, good morning, everybody. It's no secret that 2019 was not a great year for Chartwell Hospitality and the hospitality business in general. We had very few hotels that actually exceeded 2018 revenue goals or exceeded 2019 budget goals. So it was a small window of hotels. So this year we're trying to focus on rebuilding that scorecard and improving our performance. So I want to make sure that you're dialed in, that you're looking at it, and we're going to talk about the next few things we're going to be talking about are going to be kind of going into that. But I want to say that the best way to drive performance at your hotel is to drive revenue at your hotel. So if you are dialed in and part of the sales plans, the sales accountabilities, that will help cure most of the evils that you have as it relates to deficiencies you might be facing on the balanced scorecard. But each regional manager within Chartwell is going to be focusing on the balanced scorecard with their particular hotels and holding people accountable for hitting their goals. So you've seen that from in my region. You've seen that from me on my communications on the weekly narrative, on the forecasts that you've been submitting, the mid-month and the first month of the forecast. So again, just focus on that and remember to run the hotel like you would if it was your money, meaning, you know, pay attention to everything you're spending and to make sure you understand what's going on. And with that, we'll roll in to talk about a little bit about budgets.
So in terms of spending and our budgets this year, you know, I sent out a message, a couple weeks ago about the budgets, and that you should be very familiar with them from month to month and know, when you're doing irregular purchasing of things. For instance, when you're doing mulch and flowers, and making sure that those items, those big ticket items that you have budgeted, that they hit in the months that they're budgeted. So just make sure you're looking ahead and you're planning ahead for that. And you're in touch with every line item on your P&L before you get into the month. So be aware of that. I think in this next year, we've got to be smart. We got to be smarter and more thrifty with our spending. And that's always a balancing with what is a need and common sense. We want to protect the asset. We want to take care of our hotels. But to Don's point, we need to spend the money like it's our own. And I'll just tell you, financial decisions, whether they're $50 or $100 or $5,000, they're all important this year. So please keep your financial hat on and your financial manager hat on strong all year. You want to make sure that you have some extras on the shelf. Like if you need an iron for a guest room, you ought to be able to pull one off the shelf and give it to a guest. Doesn't mean you need to have 3 cases of irons laying around. So just balance that need with what you can afford. Make sure you're using the most out of Avendra. The more spend we have with Avendra, the bigger discount and the bigger rebates that we get as a company. Those rebates go right back to your P&L at the end of the year. In terms of short-term supplies, try to avoid those making multiple trips to Home Depot and Lowe's with your maintenance staff. They ought to have the basic common maintenance stuff on the shelf. And I'd also encourage you to use HD. You can order and have stuff with HD the next day. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to mention. I know in my region, our flex report for the fourth quarter was ugly. We missed our revenue by $54,000 and missed our expenses by $200,000. So I'm looking for us to improve that scorecard every month and every quarter this year.
Thank you, Paul. I agree with what Paul's talking about here. Also timing, making sure you're reviewing your budgets from when things are coming due and when you should be doing it. So if you have carpet's going to be cleaned in March, you need to be setting that up now and scheduling that, and so it hits in the proper month. Also making sure that things hit in the month that you spent the money in. So if you spend $2,000 on something in November, it should not be hitting your January P&L. So let's make sure we have that. Also timing on when you need to buy things. You should not be buying a new chafer dish in your slowest month of the year unless it's what I call mission critical, meaning you have to have it to operate the breakfast. So just be cognizant of that as you're going through and looking at the budgets. The other thing that we like to talk about today is a little bit on the 90-day forecasting. We're trying to get more accurate on the forecasting. So my challenge for each one of you guys is your mid-month 90-day forecast should be within 5% of your final P&L when you get it, meaning the profit you predict on your 90-day forecast on the 13th or the 15th of the month should be within 5% of where you land on your P&L profit and revenue side. So get out your mid-month forecast, compare it to your P&L, find out what you missed, what you did not adjust, what forecasts could be more accurate, and make those changes as you go into the next month. And if you need help on that, I would be happy to help you on that. But we need to get our forecast and accuracy more on track with where our actual financial performance will land. I know we have some big swings on the narrative reports going up and down, based on the pickups, but we really need to try to dial in as best we can, because we're using that information for cash flow purposes here in this office and finding out how much money we have to meet payroll, pay our taxes, pay our accounts payable, and those type of things. So just try to be as accurate as you can. And if you need help on forecasting, hey, we've got some great forecasters out there. Gabby, Emily, some other people that do a really good job on forecasting that just quickly come to mind. But we got tools and people that we can partner you up with to help you out. So if you need help, reach out to Paul, reach out to myself, and we'll get you a little bit more additional help on the forecasting.
Sounds good. I want to talk for a minute about the annual review changes. Recently, Chris sent out a memo and some new guidance on annual reviews. So we had a couple of changes to those. One is the implementation of a 0 as a score on the reviews. So a couple things just to remind everyone on and get everyone focused with is you've got to make sure that your reviews, one, have good content. So there'll be times when I get a review and it's got, one line, it's talking about quality of work, and it just has one line or maybe 2 lines about the person. And, we're really looking for, you really owe your associate more information. So give them cite some examples. Be thinking about the last entire year that they worked, not just the last 60 days. It's easy if someone's been underperforming for, the last 60 days, but their first 10 months of the year were good. It's easy to focus on the last 60 days. It's kind of like that Janet Jackson song, Don.
Not familiar with that one, Paul.
It is the one that goes, "What have you done for me lately?"
All right.
Fantastic song. Anyway, so think about the whole year and make sure that you're giving good content and good meat, and not just doing it as a paper exercise. Also, your reviews, we gave some guidance on how many or what kind of, who should have 5% reviews. And those reviews, think of those as precious. You can really only give those to your rock stars, to your A players. And so, from my standpoint, if I get several reviews and they're all 5%, I'm gonna send it back and go, hey, is this person really a rock star? Are they really an A player? And if they are, great. But I'm going to challenge it if I constantly see those, and we want to give that feedback to associates as well. Likewise, if you have someone who's underperforming all the time, you may give out some 0% increases and some 1s, and so that's got to all make sense with their path they're on, with their performance.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Paul. You might want to make sure that you research the employee's file and see how many written warnings or commitment to correction they have for that particular year, and make sure you focus on that. One of the reasons we added the 0% was the fact that after talking to East Coast, we were doing reviews and giving people 1% raises based on our needs improvement scale, and it really wasn't consistent with action plans they were on and those type of things. So if you write somebody up for being late all the time, but yet you score that they're above average on attendance, those two don't correlate. So make sure that you're in line, and make sure you're reviewing those with your department heads, and that you understand the direction that your team is going and how they're proceeding.
Thank you, Don. Talk a little about Go Green tracking, and for the Marriott's Green Choice. So all hotels and all brands should now be tracking this program with what their take rate is. So you should be at least getting this number and measuring it once a week, and sharing that at your staff meeting, sharing it at your huddle, and letting everybody know where you are with your take rate and where you want to be. If your goal is 12% and you're at 10, everybody needs to know that, so the front desk can push it, and maintenance can push it, and housekeeping. Everybody can have a unified effort for it. So just a reminder, those are due at the end of the month for all brands, Marriott and Hilton and Choice. Those go to Karen. So please please get those done timely to her so we can get the wrap up out.
On the Go Green, if you have any hotels from the Hilton side, it's not an approved Hilton program, and you're getting pushback on your QA, make sure you discuss that with Paul or myself as it relates to that. We may have to make some adjustments in how we handle the program or possibly eliminate the program if it's going to cost you 251 QA points down the road. We've had many QA people that have looked at it, haven't said anything about it, and we've had some that give us pushback on it. So make sure you communicate that to Paul and myself.
Absolutely. And we've covered quite a bit so far, so I might just stop for a minute. And are there any questions or anything anybody wants to talk about, questions or comments at this point before we kind of go further in the call?
No, sir.
Okay, we will continue. Reminder from Chris and your regionals about I-9s. I-9s must be completed on the first day of employment. So if you're not in that practice, you got to get there quickly and make sure those are uploaded and all those documents are in Adams Keegan. In addition, make sure you're using, when you have a new hire associate, that you're getting that new hire orientation checklist out of the P&P, and you start that on day one with your new hires. I want to talk about the perfect fill and threshold tracking. Now, there's a lot of revenue tied up. When we look at our perfect fills and our threshold, there's a lot of revenue we leave on the table. So we want to do a better job of that this year. I'm looking for better results in my region. And I guess I just wanted to open it up for a minute and talk about best practices. Does anybody have, in terms of filling and getting to 100%, getting to that threshold, selling those last few rooms every night, does anybody have any best practices they want to share that's working well at their hotel?
They're all on mute.
No, they're not. Anybody, what's working for you to get to perfect fills? What are you doing that you can share with everybody else?
One of the things that I'll add, I'll start, Paul, is making sure that when you have Chartwell or any business associate traveling to your hotel and you're going to be above your threshold, that you're charging that Chartwell owner's rate. That Chartwell guest is putting that on their credit card, and then they're billing that back to you. So it doesn't affect your threshold. So that's the best practice. I've been out in hotels recently where they've adjusted off my rate, or they didn't do the rate, they didn't charge me correctly. So just make sure that we're all doing that correctly. And we should be. There's an email out with Lynn that shows what that owner's rate is for every hotel. If you don't have that or you need that, just reach out to Lynn and she'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you, Don. Also, I'll mention for Marriott that the lowest threshold right now is 85%. So, if you've got myself or Don or someone from sales, and you're at 83 or 84%, make sure you put us in at the rate so you get to that first tier of reimbursement for extra revenue. Anybody else? Best practices for perfect fills or threshold performance?
I know in
to make sure that you have valid message of payment on all reservations and not wait until later in the evening.
Thanks, Ed. Good comment on credit cards, making sure you got authorization. And there was one other person that just talked the same time as Ed. Who was that?
That's me, Gabby.
Gabby, go ahead.
One thing I've been concentrating on during revenue calls is being kind of more involved, for Hilton hotels at least, in Grow about how we're washing our groups. Because that can really affect your overbooking limit. So as we head into season, I plan on being more on track with the sales team about how much we're washing that group and what that does for our overbooking.
Great comment. Thanks, Gabby. What else? Anything else? All right, let's move on to chargebacks. Don.
Well, that's everybody's favorite subject, chargebacks. Some of you are doing a great job on chargebacks, and some of you are not. So here's the deal. I've sat in a meeting recently with our accounting team and heard some frustrations about people that are not logging in and looking at their portals online. to view their chargeback activity. And if you don't log in after 30 days, it resets your password, and you got to get a hold of Nikki and get a new password. So let's make sure that you or a member of your team is logging into those portals every day and making sure that we're researching and responding to any chargeback advice information that's given out. It has always been my goal to use the chargeback line on the P&L as a clearing line, meaning that the chargeback gets posted there until it is dealt with. Once that chargeback case is won, then you would receive a credit to that line, or if you have to write that off to a revenue account, such as guaranteed no-show or late cancellation, then it would be transferred out and made that adjustment in the PMS system. Or if it is a bad debt, true bad debt, fraudulent credit card, things of that nature, that would be transferred to bad debt. So again, using that as a clearing line. So work with Paul, work with Don on your chargebacks, and let's make sure that we're following that. But most importantly, make sure you're researching them, make sure you're responding to them, and making sure that we don't have $10,000 of charges set on a chargeback line at the end of the year. Marriott chip and pin. Speaking of chargebacks, great segue into protecting yourself there with things. Marriott's rolling out the chip and pin technology. They've been a little bit slow to get that off the ground. Hilton's had the chip swipers, or the chip readers, I should call them, at a lot of their hotels already. Marriott has it out in the bistro now, and then on the PMS system, and then they're going to be rolling it into the rest of the PMS system very soon, midsummer is what we're being told. So look for more information to come on that to follow. Avendra and IBE, it doesn't stand for irritable bowel syndrome. It stands for iBuy Efficient, although sometimes it might feel like it. Usage and tracking. We are under contract to buy at least 70% of all of our items through an Avendra iBuy Efficient vendor. So if you don't do 70% of your purchases on the portal, you'll start getting charged fees from iBuy to belong to the program. So that's important. I sent out something to my region earlier about challenging where we're making purchases from, what vendors we're using, i.e. Guest Supply and Cisco are not part of Avendra, but American Hotel Register, U.S. Foods, Shamrock, Vinnie Keith, they're all part of Avendra. So work with your regional on switching over to an approved Avendra vendor and challenge yourself to make more purchases through the iBuy Efficient portal. One of the things I will bring you up to speed on is our agreement with P&G and Ecolab. Ecolab, we have most of our hotels are with pests with Ecolab. Most of our hotels are with P&G for chemicals. Our contract with P&G goes up for renewal next month at the end of February 29th. And so with that said, we're entertaining proposals from Ecolab and also P&G. Ecolab was here this week. The upside with Ecolab is they're the vendor. Your cost would come down a little bit, and your pest elimination costs would come down. You would get your chemicals delivered through your master food distributor, so your bracket size may drop on your food, which would save you another 1 to 3% on your food cost. So there are upsides to looking at moving from P&G to Ecolab. There's also a one-time payment involved that they would pay us to get our business back. So we're exploring that. I'm not saying we're moving, but we're exploring that. And then P&G is going to meet with us in this office this afternoon at 1:30 Central Time and give us their proposal for a new contract with P&G. For those that are maybe new to Chartwell, we've been with P&G for 8 years, and all our times prior to that, we were with Ecolab. And Ecolab's been wanting to get our business back ever since we left them. So that's a little bit about what's going on there. Also, speaking of Avendra, since we're here, Paul mentioned earlier about Avendra rebates. We should have some tracking on the rebates, and they should be coming sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We should have that information. We're going to get a breakdown from Avendra based on spend, meaning rooms department, engineering department, food department. And when we get the rebate checks in, we will look at splitting that back to your hotel and coding it to individual line items. And we're working through that now with Chartwell, so we don't dispute our budgeted information. So we may create a line item that just says rooms, room rebate from spend, and we may put that on a separate line so we can track it versus co-mingling it with guest supplies or something like that. So we're looking at that. Keep your eyes and ears tuned for more information on the vendor rebate program, which should be coming up again in the next couple weeks. Sales, we talked a little bit earlier about sales. The 2020 marketing plans. Everybody completed a 2020 marketing plan before the budget process or during the budget process. And in previous years, you did that marketing plan, you sent it in, and you filed it away on the shelf, and you never touched it again. So what we're doing is we're trying to get people to work that marketing plan, have that be an actual living, breathing document at the hotel, using you to help set strategy, using you to help set goals with your sales team, and making sure that we're moving the needle forward on the sales side of the equation. So I challenge you to work the plan and be involved. The GM should be heavily involved in the sales. Should be accountability should be made where you have, when I was a general manager, I met with my director of sales every morning and typically every afternoon, or at least a couple times a week, just plan strategies, where they were going. You should be out on sales calls with and without your sales team. Don't have them just take you to the top 5 accounts that will say great things about the sales team. Go out with the sales team and see how they're prospecting, uncovering new business in the area, and how they're marketing and making sure that they're selling your hotel. I mean, remember, you're part of that sales accountability, and you need to be setting the tone with that. Remember, going back to the start of this conversation, we want to drive revenue in 2020, and we need to do that through sales.
I want to talk for a minute about hotel effectiveness and our labor standards this year. Don and I both have sent some messages out by email, but just some reminders. You should be very familiar with what your labor standards are and that labor standard worksheet, and you should be able to reference it regularly, and you should be very familiar off the top of your head with what your standards are. You have 10 minutes of room for front desk. You have 6 minutes of room on laundry. So you should be very familiar with that. And just in terms of hotel effectiveness, just want everybody to realize that's a great tool. It's the best tool that's available in our industry. There's some other labor management tools that are kind of a nightmare to deal with. And hotel effectiveness is very good. So let's make sure we're using it and using it to its maximum potential. One thing that I've talked to my region about is making sure that you have good information in there. Punches have to be updated. You got to make sure you got your rooms sold in every night. Daily labor checks. Daily labor checks. So you don't necessarily have to be the one that's doing it if you're not there on a Saturday or a Sunday, but someone from your property needs to be trained and know how to do it. So you don't come in on Monday and you're catching up for 3 days. It should not work that way. In terms of wages, kind of going back to our previous comment about budgets and staying within budgets, keep an eye on your wages. If you have to hire an experienced desk clerk, just as an example, and you're going to pay that person, $1 over what your budget is, well, that means that you've got to find that dollar somewhere else. So either, someone who's working, you may have X amount of hours, and now you got to either reduce your hours for that position, or you've got to hire somebody else $1 under your budget. So that's got to wash out. Again, we're in January, so these things are all cumulative as we go through the year. All these decisions are cumulative and summative as we go through the year. So we got to manage it early as we get into the year. Don, on the annual conference for Chartwell, tell us about it.
Well, it's going to be in Naples, Florida this year, Paul, April 21 through 24. And we're going to be hosting it at our Spring Hill Suites and Fairfield Inn Suites in Naples. The last time we were in Naples, we was 2011 at the Chartwell conference, so it's been a few years since we've been down there. And we're a lot larger company than we were down there last time. So we've got some great off-site locations for evening reception the first night on the beach at a nice resort. And then we've got also some great accommodations for the meeting spot off-site at the property. I will caution you to tell you that there's a lot of transportation involved since we're not meeting on site like we have been in the past year where we met at the Green Hills location. So So it's going to be a little bit like herding cats. You've heard that phrase before, meaning that when the shuttles are leaving, the shuttles are leaving. I need you out front on the bus and going to the next event. So make sure you're not one of the laggards behind of being on those shuttles. But we're excited to be hosting the event again. We're working on the agenda now. Jeannie sent out the STAR nomination form today. Take a look at that. She also sent a list of the previous winners. You can use that as a guide to see the awards that we give out. Even though it says STAR, you can nominate anybody for any of those particular awards that you choose to do so. And remember to include good backup. For example, SALT scores, GSS scores, mentions, Expedia, TripAdvisor, anything that would present your case to further your cause. It's always nice to have somebody attend the conference with you from your property that is a winner that represents the values and the characteristics of Chartwell Hospitality. So be working on that and make sure that you get that back in by the due date. For those all-suite hotels in the Hilton world on the phone today, we have an all-suites brand conference coming up in 2 weeks in Anaheim. It's February 4th through the 7th at the Anaheim Convention Center. And I know that there's a few people on the call today that are attending that. Director of Sales and General Managers are required to attend to the All Suites Conference. From this office, TJ Angelino and myself will be attending. TJ's put together a planned evening one night on the dinner, which is on a Wednesday night when we have a free evening. I've been invited to sit on a panel with Chris Nassetta and a few of the Hilton senior leaders while I'm there. I'm excited about that. So remember, you're representing Chartwell when you're there. You should be engaged, you should be networking, and you should be attending the events while you're there and representing your team, representing Chartwell, and representing your hotel. And finally, what I will say about the conferences, when you go to these conferences, because next we'll talk about the Focus Service conferences, recruitment is always a great thing to do at these conferences. So if you're coming across great individuals or like-minded individuals that you met at GM school or leadership class, and you think they'd be a good fit for Chartwell, let's get in front of them. Let's introduce them to myself, to TJ, or whoever's going to be attending the Focus Service conference in Orlando. So the Hilton Focus Service conference is in Orlando, September 1st through the 3rd, and that would be Hilton Garden Inn, Hampton Inn, and True Hotels. And we don't have any Trues, don't plan on building any Trues at this time, true that, but we are going to continue to develop Home2s. So that will be our rapidly expanding brand, and also doing some dual things with Home2s and Hamptons and Home2s with HDI. So no Marriott conference this year. It's nice that the brands are on a every other year schedule. So Marriott was last year, Hilton is this year. So if you have any questions about that or need any assistance, get a hold of me or get a hold of Paul, and we'll walk you through it.
A few weeks ago, we sent some information out about our referral program that we've been doing now for a while. We got some information back from everyone, and we're reviewing that now. We know that we like the program, the field likes the program, and we're looking to continue it. We also may be looking to make a few changes to it just to tweak it based on the feedback that we received.
Let's make sure that you're using it. We had plenty of hotels that were not even had any referrals paid out. But more importantly, and I even got some today, let's make sure we're paying it out in a timely manner. It quickly becomes a liability and not an asset when the employee has to come ask for their money when they've referred someone to us. We should be out front and ahead of that and paying that out in a prompt and timely manner.
Absolutely. So continue doing what you're doing for now, but you may look for some changes coming out to that program shortly. Don and I are going to be reviewing all of the wage scales and wage surveys that you sent in next week, and we'll be getting that back to you. If you have not sent it in to us, make sure you get that in our inbox today if you've not already sent it. On our P&P updates, let's make sure that everybody on your team, especially your management staff, that they're aware of these changes that are being made in P&P as they're made. So it doesn't help a whole lot if you're the only one who knows what the changes are. So make sure your leadership team is aware of them as well. and that they're also signing off and they're reading the changes and they're up to speed as we, we're trying to get better and sharper with these PMP updates. And so make sure you're sharing it with your managers.
Thank you, Paul. Benefit allocations. I sent out an email recently, and I'm always reinforcing the benefits spreadsheet that John Sudbury, I always have a tendency to pluralize his name, call him Sudbury, but John sends out and making sure that you guys are looking at that. So that report down on the bottom of that Excel spreadsheet, you can differentiate that between UHC, Symetra, MetLife, and then you can sort by property. You can see your property, and then you can go into the detail and find the employee's name. There's plenty of times where I've been working with Ben, and we're finding out that we've got somebody's employee in Colorado Springs, I'll make it up, and their benefits are being charged to Stewart in error, and the Stewart Hotel has not even noticed that yet. So you're the general manager, you're responsible for the P&L, you should understand what's on your P&L. So making sure you're doing that. We had another situation where we had a hotel where the COBRA benefits were being paid by Chartwell, but the COBRA reimbursement from the property was going to the property. So again, Chartwell's not paying the reimbursement. So make sure that you look at that. I try to look at it every month when it comes out as well to at least know your leadership team, but I don't know your hourly associates as well, so it's harder for me to do the Symetra side. But just make sure that you're taking care of that, you're doing the benefits, and I'm requiring my team to send me an email once they've done it at the end of every month when they get that from John, just so I can be clear that they're on there. So just take a look at that. We're trying to improve our processes, and this is an important step.
Thank you, Don. Just a couple of ideas I wanted to share with you. One is I stayed at a hotel recently that had these black washcloths in the bathrooms for makeup remover, and I think it was really beneficial for them, is that they're trying to save on the damage that's done from a hand towel or a washcloth on makeup that they can't get off of one of those. So if that's of interest to you and you think it'll benefit your hotel, just a reminder on those, if the brand will allow you to do that. They're available through HD. Part number's on here, and I'll send this out so you have that if you have an interest. This is an amenity that I did at a hotel a few years ago. These are all things that you can buy through HD Supply, and it's a nice amenity, kind of an upscale thing that you can use. If you wanted to have a guest of the day, or you wanted to recognize a particular sales client from your top 5 accounts or top 10 accounts, just to say thanks for your business, enjoy your stay. But these are things you can buy. In this example, you've got some cheese, crackers, red grapes, blueberries, and then strawberries cut in half. And you've got a nice upscale cheese. This is on a nice plate. You would not want to use a paper plate, but make sure you use a nice plate. Got saran wrap on it. Put it in the refrigerator, and then you should have a note that goes with it. And so the note will say, "Hey, welcome. We're glad you're here. Whatever your message is, and we've got a nice prize for you in the refrigerator."
Is the frog meal there?
So no, the frog is not a part of the amenity. But good question. Let's see. I think I had one more. Did I have one more picture? No, I did not. So we got a couple of shout outs, and we'll wrap up the call. Don, you want to do your shout outs first?
Sure, I'll kick off. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody in my region for their hard work through the budget process of 2019 into the 2020 budget process. It was a long, exhausting process, and we're through it now, and it's good to have the budgets done. I feel really good about the budgets this year. There was a lot of hard work on everybody's standpoint, and I appreciate everybody going through. It's a learning curve, and we're learning as we go, so we're trying to get better and incorporate new tools. And also a special thanks to the budget captains that are on the call today. You may have seen a monetary amount paid out to a budget captain to hit your P&L that assisted with your property. And so if you did, you see that. And if you're interested in being a budget captain for 2021 budget process, then you can reach out to Ben, and we'll kind of go from there. He kind of coordinates that with the help of the regionals. From a property standpoint, I'd like to give a good shout out today to Gabby, Star, and Ricardo. Both Ricardo and Gabby worked extremely hard on getting the Home2 opened. We were able to open that hotel with our people on the ground in the market. They did it all on their own, per se. We had a little bit of help come in from out of town with it as it relates to maintenance punches and those type of things. But both Gabby's team and Ricardo's team did an outstanding job opening that hotel. We had a very successful grand opening event in November, and we're super excited about the hotel and the business opportunities ahead of us there. So, being our first home too, being in a sister city with us in Colorado Springs, and being right around the corner from our Hampton, just super excited. So, thank you, Gabby. Thanks, Ricardo, for all your hard work. Now let's get that cash register ringing, and let's make 2020 a great year. Let's drive some revenues.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
I want to recognize a couple of my top performers in terms of revenue and flow through from December. And can I get a drum roll, please, Don? Thank you. So my top performing hotel in December from a flow standpoint was the Residence Inn, South Haven, Mississippi. So good job, and had 58% flow through in December. So great job managing your expenses and your profitability. Great job, young lady.
Thank you.
Also coming in at number 2 was Homewood Suites Raleigh at 42% flow through. So good job, Barbara and team, on your financial performance in December. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lastly, I just want to thank those GMs that are really making a great effort on sales and to partner with their DOS and to be out there knocking on doors and asking for business. I've seen a lot of that in my region in the last couple of months, and I just appreciate that. Good work, and keep focused on that. That'll pay dividends for you, I'm sure. But that's all I've got, so thank you for your time today on the call. Any questions? Comments before we wrap up? Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon, a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.